You wake up, put on the same smile, say the same things, go through the same motions. You answer, "I'm fine," even when everything inside you wants to scream, "I'm not." You've learned to hide it so well, even you forget it's there sometimes. The ache, the heaviness, the quiet grief for a self you're not allowed to show. You smile when your chest is burning. You laugh when your heart is numb. You carry conversations like they're costumes, rehearsed, weightless, meaningless. And deep down, you wonder if anyone would even notice if the real you disappeared entirely. Because the truth is, you've been wearing a mask for so long, it doesn't feel like a mask anymore. It feels like your face. But something inside you still aches. Something quiet, but relentless. A part of you that whispers, "This isn't who I am." You don't remember when it started. Maybe it was when you were told not to cry. Maybe it was when being soft made you a target. Maybe it was when they only praised the version of you that performed, that pleased, that obeyed, that didn't need too much. And so you learned to fold yourself. You learned to become palatable. You learned to wear a smile like armor, because being real was risky. Being honest felt dangerous. But here's the part you never say out loud. You're tired. Not tired like you need more sleep. Tired in your soul. Tired of pretending. Tired of shrinking. Tired of feeling like love must be earned through silence. And maybe no one ever told you this before, but that pain you carry, it's not weakness. It's your truth, suffocating under layers of performance. You tell yourself it's fine. Other people have it worse. You should be grateful. But gratitude doesn't cure disconnection, and comparison doesn't cancel out suffering. You've confused survival with healing, but they are not the same. Because what you've really been doing is disappearing. A little more each day. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you swallow the truth to keep the peace. Every time you laugh at what hurts just to avoid the silence that follows honesty. And still, you hope someone will see through it. You hope someone will ask, "Are you really okay?" And mean it. But no one does. Because you made it look easy. Because you made your pain look beautiful. Because you played the role so well. They forgot it was a performance. But deep down, you haven't forgotten. And that's where your story begins. But deep down, you haven't forgotten. You remember the moment, not the date, not the place, but the shift. The slow, silent moment when you decided it's safer to pretend than to be real. You didn't choose the mask because you're weak. You chose it because life gave you no safe place for the truth. No space to say, "I'm hurting." No room to ask, "Can you love me even like this?" So you became what they needed, what they praised, what they could tolerate. And in doing so, you slowly buried the parts of you that felt too loud, too emotional, too complicated, too real. You thought it was strength, this ability to hold it all in, to smile when it burns, to function through the fog. But here's the truth no one ever told you. That's not strength. That's self-abandonment. You think you're protecting others by hiding your pain. But really, you're protecting yourself from rejection. Because you learned, maybe quietly, maybe brutally, that the full truth of who you are is too much for this world. So now you live between two selves, the one you perform and the one you repress, the version you give to others and the one screaming beneath the surface. And when you feel unseen, unvalued, unknown, you blame yourself. You tell yourself you're ungrateful, overly sensitive, dramatic. But the truth is simpler. You've never been loved for who you really are. You've been loved for the mask. And the longer you wear it, the more the mask becomes your identity. You play the caretaker, but inside you crave care. You say yes, but your soul is crying no. You're always available, but never truly present. And all the while, something inside you is grieving. Grieving the self that got left behind in the name of survival. Maybe you've felt it. That quiet panic beneath the calm. That sudden disconnection in the middle of joy. That numbness when everyone else seems to be feeling something real. That's not a flaw. It's the cost of wearing a mask too long. Because a mask doesn't just hide you, it isolates you. Even when people love you, you wonder, would they still love you if they knew the whole truth? The raw truth, the mess, the memories, the parts you've worked so hard to silence. And so you stay silent. You keep the peace. You nod along. And every time you do, a little more of your soul fades into the background. But here's what no one told you. Repression doesn't erase pain. It just delays it. Locks it inside until your body aches for no reason, until your chest tightens without warning, until your joy feels thin, brittle, breakable. Because you weren't meant to live divided. You weren't built to wear a smile on your mouth and sorrow in your bones. The mask was meant to be temporary, a shield. But somewhere along the way, it became a prison. And now, even when you want to take it off, you hesitate. Because what if there's nothing underneath it? What if the mask is all you are? But listen closely. That voice inside you, the quiet one, the one that says, "This isn't who I am." That's not fear. That's your truth, trying to find its way back to you. And it's still there. Buried, but breathing. Silent, but alive. You don't need to destroy the mask. You just need to stop mistaking it for your face. Because the most painful lie you ever believed is that hiding your truth was noble, that disappearing made you good, that silence kept you safe. But safety isn't the same as wholeness, and quiet isn't the same as peace. You've done what you had to do to survive. But now, you deserve more than survival. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be whole. And that's where everything begins to shift. Let's go deeper. Because the truth you've buried has been waiting for someone to name it, to explain the ache beneath the smile, to hold a mirror to the life you've learned to perform. And someone did, decades ago. In quiet observation of souls just like yours. Souls caught between who they are and who the world told them to be. His name was Carl Jung. But don't think of him as a scholar. Think of him as someone who saw through the mask long before you even knew you were wearing one. He didn't call you broken. He didn't label you a disorder. He simply saw the truth. That what you're doing, this performance, this quiet repression, is not insanity. It's survival. It's what happens when the world values personas more than people. Jung called it the persona, the mask you create to survive, in a world that doesn't make space for your full self. But he warned you, if you become too attached to that mask, you'll forget who you really are. Because the mask is seductive. It wins you praise. It keeps you safe. It makes life feel manageable. But over time, you become what you pretend to be. A hollow reflection of someone you no longer recognize. Jung wrote, "The persona is a system of behavior designed to make a certain impression upon others while concealing the true nature of the individual." It doesn't sound evil. It sounds practical. But that's what makes it dangerous. Because what starts as protection becomes imprisonment. You tell yourself you're adapting, but deep down, you're disappearing. And every time you shrink to fit someone else's comfort, you reinforce the belief that your truth is too much. That's why Jung didn't just study the mask. He studied what lives underneath it. The part of you that's been cast into the shadows, the emotions you hide, the memories you suppress, the truth you've never spoken aloud, not even to yourself. He called this the shadow, not because it's evil, but because it's been exiled from the light. Your anger, your grief, your desire, your softness, your voice, all the pieces of you that couldn't survive in the role you were assigned. And here's where it gets painful. The longer you ignore the shadow, the more power it has over you. It leaks out in moments of rage, in sudden panic, in the silence that follows a fake smile. You can't run from it. You can only return to it. Jung didn't want you to destroy the mask. He wanted you to integrate what was hidden beneath it, to meet yourself fully, even the parts you've been taught to shame. Because until you do, your life isn't fully yours. It's a performance, a projection, a series of choices based on fear, not truth. You may look successful, you may seem put together, but inside, there's a disconnection so sharp, it numbs everything else. And here's the most important thing Jung said, not in theory, but in spirit. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who they applauded, not who they could tolerate, not who they asked you to be, but you, the full, messy, unmasked version, the one who stopped performing, the one who started remembering, the one who turned inward and found that nothing was ever truly lost. You don't have to destroy the mask in one violent gesture. You just have to stop confusing it for your identity. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. And wholeness means returning to the parts you've abandoned, not with judgment, but with tenderness. That's what Jung wanted for you. Not a perfect life, not a painless one, but a real one. A life lived from the inside out, not just from the surface in. And that is where the healing begins. But this next part may hurt, and it's why it matters. Because if you want to reclaim who you are, you can't just take off the mask. You have to face what it was hiding. You have to turn inward and meet the parts of you the world convinced you to abandon. That's the real work, not the performance, not the perfection, not even the healing they post about online. The work is in the shadows, the messy, buried, honest truth of you. Because here's what no one warned you about the mask. It doesn't just cover your pain, it creates it. Every time you suppress your anger to keep the peace, you teach your nervous system that your needs don't matter. Every time you act fine to avoid discomfort, you train your body to distrust its own signals. Every time you swallow truth for the sake of harmony, you reinforce the belief that love must be earned through silence. That's not kindness. That's conditioning. That's survival. Rehearsed so well, it started to look like your personality. But underneath all of it, beneath the mask, beneath the persona, there's a truth you've been carrying alone. You were never too much. You were just too honest for a world addicted to pretending. And that honesty, the real you, got cast into what Jung called the shadow. But don't let that word scare you. It doesn't mean evil. It means exiled. It means the parts of you that were never welcomed. So you buried them beneath layers of performance. Your anger, your tears, your sensitivity, your voice, your softness. not flaws, just traits that didn't fit the role they assigned you. And now, they haunt you. Not loudly, but quietly. In the way you flinch when you need help. In the way you say, it's okay when it's not. In the way you smile at people who make you feel small. The shadow isn't dangerous because of what's in it. It's dangerous because you've forgotten what you locked inside. You weren't born to be disconnected. You were taught that your truth was inconvenient. So you silenced it. And the silence grew roots until it became your default. Emotionally clean on the outside, but spiritually starved on the inside. You call it burnout. You call it numbness. You call it anxiety. But maybe it's none of those. Maybe it's grief. Grief for the version of you that was never allowed to exist. And here's what makes it harder. You don't just grieve alone. You also feel guilty for grieving. Because life looks fine on paper. Because you should be happy. Because others have it worse. But pain doesn't compete. And silence doesn't heal. You can't bypass the shadow with gratitude. You can't pray it away, journal it away, or self-help it into submission. The only way out is in. You have to feel what you've repressed. You have to mourn what you were never given. You have to listen to the parts of you that still whisper in the dark, I miss being me. And maybe that scares you. Because the world didn't reward you for truth. It rewarded you for performance. But here's your reminder. The mask may win you applause, but only your truth will bring you peace. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to burn everything down. You just need to stop editing yourself to fit inside other people's comfort zones. Because the real you, the whole you, deserves to be seen without translation, without shrinkage, without apology. And when you begin to reclaim those parts, when you bring them back from the shadows and hold them without shame, something begins to shift. Not all at once, not in a grand gesture, but slowly, like a breath returning, like a voice remembering itself. And that's the beginning of something sacred. But don't stop here, because clarity is only the doorway. Integration is where the freedom lives. Let's keep going. Because now that you've felt the shadow, now that you've seen what the mask was hiding, you have a choice. Not a loud, dramatic one, but a quiet, sacred one. To come home to yourself. This isn't about fixing. This isn't about becoming someone better. This is about remembering the version of you that never needed to perform to be worthy. Because that version, the soft, honest, wild, human you, has always been there. Waiting, patient, beneath the pretending, beneath the survival, beneath the voice that says, don't rock the boat. This is clarity. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that whispers, I know who I am now, and I don't need to disappear to be loved. You spent so long asking, who do I need to be so they'll stay? Who do I need to become so I'll be enough? But the real question was always this. Who was I before I believed I had to change to be safe? Because that's the you who's waiting. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. And here's the truth, Jung knew. The one most people skip when they talk about healing. You don't become whole by being good. You become whole by being honest. By turning toward your fear, not away from it. By holding space for the grief, instead of pushing it down. By saying the words you've silenced for years, even if your voice shakes when you say them. This is not self-improvement. This is self-return. You were never meant to be one version of yourself forever. You were never meant to shrink just because someone else couldn't hold your truth. You were meant to evolve, to peel back every false layer, to outgrow the role you were handed, and step into the life that was meant for you. Not the life that's impressive on the outside, but the one that feels like peace on the inside. And that starts with a radical kind of honesty. I don't want to perform anymore. I don't want to smile through pain anymore. I don't want to be loved for being easy. I want to be loved for being real. Because love that requires you to hide is not love. It's approval with conditions. And you're done performing for conditional peace. You're done apologizing for your depth. You're done shrinking your needs into neat sentences. You're done pretending small talk is enough when your soul is craving something real. You are not your mask. You are not your numbness. You are not the version of you that kept everything inside just to make life work. You are the person who's finally ready to be seen without translation. And that's where power lives. Not in control, not in perfection, but in truth. In the courage to say, I want more than this performance. I want a life that feels like me. Because clarity doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It just means you're no longer lying to yourself. It means you're willing to face what hurts, because you know what's on the other side isn't pain, it's freedom. And yes, it's messy. You'll have days when the mask still tempts you. You'll have moments where truth feels heavy. You'll slip. You'll question. You'll grieve the version of you that made everything look so perfect. But don't confuse the discomfort of truth with the danger of it. Discomfort is what freedom feels like at first. Because now, you're not just surviving, you're waking up. And in that awakening, there's something unshakable. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to feel deeply. You are allowed to live a life that fits your soul, not just your resume. And if that makes you harder to love for some people, so be it. You were never here to be easy. You were here to be real. Let this be your turning point. Not a grand gesture, just a quiet decision. I will not betray myself again. And with that, you begin to return. Not to the mask, not to the performance, but to the version of you that was never broken, just buried. And maybe for the first time, you don't want to run from your truth. You want to sit with it. Hold it. Let it breathe. Because now, you're not chasing applause. You're not begging for space. You're not trying to be loved for your convenience. You're choosing something quieter, but infinitely more powerful. You're choosing peace. Not the kind that's earned by pleasing everyone. Not the kind that comes from avoiding conflict. But the kind that lives in your body when you stop lying to yourself. That's what Jung meant when he said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. Integration doesn't mean erasing your past. It means holding it close without letting it control you. It means saying, yes, I've worn the mask. Yes, I've abandoned myself. Yes, I performed so well that even I forgot who I was. But now, I remember, and I'm not ashamed of how I coped. I'm just ready to stop coping and start living. Because the truth is, you were never weak. You were never fake. You were just surviving in a world that taught you to be digestible instead of whole. But survival is not your home, and silence is not your destiny. You are allowed to take off the mask without apology. You are allowed to feel deeply, wildly, honestly. You are allowed to be seen in full color, not just grayscale politeness. You are allowed to be loved without shrinking. Let that truth sit in your chest for a moment. Let it break something open. A silence you've been holding, a grief you've been hiding, a softness you forgot how to trust. This isn't a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. It's the moment you realize you don't need to be easy to be worthy. You don't need to be silent to be safe. You don't need to be agreeable to be loved. You just need to be true. And truth isn't always soft. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it cuts away the old versions of you that only ever existed to keep the peace. But after the cut comes the calm. After the grief comes the ground. You are not who they told you to be. You are who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the rehearsals. And maybe, for the first time, you don't want to perform. You want to belong to yourself. So let this be your quiet revolution. Not the kind with fireworks or declarations. The kind where you wake up one day and realize you've stopped pretending. You've stopped shrinking. You've stopped apologizing for being whole. And you've started living in your truth without fear of losing the people who only loved your mask. Because the ones who truly see you, they don't ask you to hide. So here's your invitation. Not to change who you are, but to return to it. To breathe without bracing. To speak without scripting. To rest without guilt. To exist without disguise. If this spoke to something inside you, if you felt seen, if you're tired of pretending, say it below. I choose my truth. Not for the algorithm, not for validation, but for the version of you that's been waiting for permission to come home. Because that version, that's the real you. And it's time